Oh, gentlemen, hey, family, we're live. We're live. We're live. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, this evening. Gentlemen, if you could please go ahead and start a watch party. Share us. Everybody out there in America, share us. Share right now. This is one of the most important conversations of this week as we celebrate Father's Day. So we invite you to share and to like this and start a watch party as we get into a discussion today with three brilliant leaders here in our community. They're pastors. Each of them are pastors in their own right, and they're doing some amazing work here in America. And I think it's appropriate for us as we celebrate Father's Day to engage in dialogue of what it's like being a father. I'm Pastor Barrett of the Empower Living Church, and I'm going to introduce my gentlemen as they go around. We have Eric Williams. We like to call him E-Will. He's from Life Turning Point Ministries here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're blessed to have Pastor Mitchell Blue. He's also a church planter and pastor and founder of Uncommon Church here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have the good Dr. Robert O'Neill. He's pastor. I'll put that in there for you, Robert. I'm adding you up there, boy. It's Shepherd's Way Christian Church in Zebulon, North Carolina. I'm excited to have each and every one of you here today. And so I want to invite you all, too, to share and to like and start watch parties as well where you are. And let's go ahead and just get started here and have an opening statement. Just, also a church planter and pastor. Okay, all right. I hear myself too. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started with Eric. Just open us up, man, and tell us what's it like being a pastor and father during the season of protesting?
Well, and this season is very interesting. I don't know if we want to call it a season, but during this time it's interesting because, I have young men, and raising these young men, they're asking me, although we live in a primarily white neighborhood, they're asking me about racism. Daddy, does white people hate black people? Why is that? Is it safe for me to go outside? Is it safe for me to ride my bike? And it's difficult because as a man, as a father, I want to protect them, and they're asking me questions I really don't have the answer for in this time, more so than, kind of leading them to and encourage them to stay in the backyard. So it's really challenging in this time when you have young men and young children who really are at the age that they don't quite comprehend racism and color at this point. And they ask you those questions along with the coronavirus happening,
At the same time. At the exact
at the
same
time.
Yeah. I take it to you, Mitchell Blue.
Yeah, man.
What's it like being a pastor and father right now?
It's definitely a unique challenge. I like to akin it to a tale of two cities, man. It's the best of times and the worst of times all at the same time. And it definitely forces us to be ambidextrous and very creative in how we minister. But then, too, as Pastor Williams mentioned, trying to answer questions for young people that really sometimes don't want to hear our answers. They just want to express their anger, and they want to, they just want to touch some stuff, for lack of a better term. So it's trying to get them to understand that, though you are frustrated, though you are angry, no one's actually telling you that you can't be angry. But let's try to find a way to positively channel that anger. How do we get real results, and how do we target tangible results that we can push forward versus just taking our energies out on objects, things, and other people.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm going to get you started too, Robert. Go ahead and answer the question. Before we can start, Robert, we're joined by the good pastor, church planter, and pastor of Metro Church of Christ here in Charlotte, North Carolina. The good man here, his name, so I can say it for everybody so can see it, Roosevelt Moss, Pastor Roosevelt Moss, my good friend. So the question, Robert, and come back to you after that, Brother Roosevelt, to answer the question. What's it like being a pastor during this time?
Oh, man, pandemic, and then, what's going on with race and things we've seen. It's been difficult. It's been difficult not seeing the people, reaching out to our people, trying to make sure I'm answering their questions. We've been having this conversation, this dialogue for for a little while now, but each time it hits, I get a few calls. But for the most part, trying to keep us together and engaged in the conversation is difficult, but we're doing it. We're trying to keep it going. I mean, as far as being a father, my kids are not aware, man. I'm just being honest with you. They're 5
How
and
old are
9, 5 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we're guarding them with the media, social media, that kind of thing. So, as they have a few questions, I'm able to explain what's necessary at this time.
Right. Roosevelt, how about you, brother?
Oh man, as my brother mentioned, it's a tale of two cities, man. It's positive, it's awesome on one end, and it is extremely difficult to be a pastor and father on the other end. My kids, being a pastor first, I'll say it's probably been the hardest season of my ministry. I've been in ministry for I've been in ministry full time for a little over 12 years, and
Wow.
this has been the most difficult time that I've had to pastor during this kind of a season. And being a father has been challenging. I don't know if many of you probably don't know, I have two kids. Both are uh, 13 right now. One's 14. One is 13. One's 14. But I have
Mm-hmm.
a special needs son, and I have a daughter who's going into high school, and just trying to find the balance of helping her to see clearly. One of the things that I don't want to do with my daughter is tell her what to think and tell her what to say and tell her what to do all the time. I want to give her tools to teach her how to think for herself and how
Mm-hmm.
to come to the right conclusions. And it's a little difficult because we have to have hard conversations at this age that I was hoping my parents had it with me, but I was hoping I wouldn't have to have it with my kids.
Right.
But I'm having to have those conversations, and so it's a blessing to spend all this extra time with my kids. But trying to parent and have these hard conversations is definitely a challenge at the same time.
No, I think there is a crisis. I appreciate you guys' answers. I think there's a crisis in America. And so we put this out as Crisis in America. We started these dialogues, these leadership talks, because George Floyd was murdered in front of us. He was killed in front of us. And some people haven't seen it, but unfortunately, I've seen it. And it sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
And so me seeing that, it changes my comfort zone, I guess, sometimes in certain environments and arenas. And I become more, I don't know, protective of my space. And so, is there a crisis in America? What is the crisis in America? What's going on right now in America? Who wants to take that?
If I can be candid, I definitely think there is
Yeah.
a crisis. I think we talked about it one time before too. I don't think it's whether there is a crisis. I think we choose which one it is because there are multiple crises that actually exist. But I think with everything that's currently going on, I am noticing an additional crisis that I think has been somewhat masked, or maybe I've kind of just been asleep at the wheel with it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a crisis in our education system. So this conversation with George Floyd and the conversation around, okay, well, do you understand this is just not something that happened today, but this is something historically that's been happening to Black people all along. And
Right.
in having conversations with my daughters, I'm learning how much our education system is whitewashing history, how much it is whitewashing the 60s, how much is whitewashing slavery, how much it is trying to clean up the atrocities of this country and deny the fact that America was truly built on the backs of slaves. And that even after you freed these slaves, you continue to enslave these slaves through other systematic ways. And even beyond that, with Jim Crow and the rate to which we were actually lynched in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, man, it's like, having those conversations with my daughters and just saying, they understood that there was prejudice, but to the level that they have been slaughtering us, killing us, murdering us, lynching us throughout time, the educational system has failed them in that way because they kind of whitewashed it and dumbed it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So who else was articulate? What's the crisis that we're in right now?
Man, I'll tell you. I'll give a speak to it a little bit. We could talk all day, a whole nother topic, a whole nother conversation about how the whole educational system
Mm-hmm.
and just the how they've whitewashed history. We could talk about that, and I have a whole lot that I could say about that. But I'll just share with you real quickly, man, an experience I had a couple of weeks ago, and it speaks to just a whole nother level of crisis that I'm not sure how many people are really dealing with. And I was driving down the road looking for a particular restaurant with one of my members, one of my mentees, and
Mm-hmm.
we were driving, and I was making a left. And this is right here in Charlotte, in a beautiful, diverse city of Charlotte, right? We were
Right.
driving down the road, getting ready to make a left turn, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a Charlotte Mecklenburg police vehicle that was in going in the opposite way of traffic, but they were stopped at the light. I was turning left. And the moment, and I didn't see him, I saw him out of my peripheral, right?
Mm-hmm.
The moment I saw him, my heart sunk so quickly to the bottom of
Wow.
my seat. I
Oh,
was so scared for my life in that moment. I kid you not. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that for, to be extra. The feeling that I felt like my life was in danger, so much so that in that split second I started to question whether or not I was going down the wrong way in the street that I was turning on.
Mm.
Now I've made this turn so many times, but that moment, that split second made me question whether it made me question everything about my reality and whether or not was I doing something in that moment that would get that police officer's attention and would I make it home that night. In the split second of me seeing that car out of my peripheral, uh, and I was explaining that situation to a friend of mine in Florida who is a psychiatrist,
Mm-hmm.
and he was explaining to me. He says, "Brother, that sounds a whole lot like PTSD." And he says, "Man, this stuff is probably affecting you at a much deeper level than you ever thought. That
Mm-hmm.
seeing black people being treated the way that we've been treated, to put it lightly, and to cover all
Right.
the bases, every single day it seems, is affecting you in a deep, deep, deep way. And here's the crisis of it. Nobody's talking about it. And how many decisions are we making? What I don't know. I used to
Mm.
think that I could keep my cool if I got into a situation where the police put their hands on me or something. But at this moment, I don't know. We were talking about the young brother who got shot in the back who was running at the Wendy's in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and did a little research and heard a little bit more about his story. And someone suggested, I can't remember the person, they were suggesting that he so refused to want to go back into the system, to go back to jail. He would
Mm-hmm.
rather run and risk his life before he has to go back to jail because of how he knew it would destroy every aspect of his family of his life that he had spent the last year or so trying to rebuild. And so the crisis is COVID. The crisis is police brutality. But man, there's a
Right.
crisis of our mental psyche that we're going to have a conversation about on how do we handle all of this and seeing it so often right in front of us. They're killing us, brother, and they know we're watching.
Right.
How do we deal with that? How do we mentally? How do we kind of deal with that, man? So that's part of the crisis. I think, man, that very few are talking about, but I think eventually we're going to have to start discussing.
PTSD is real.
very.
I had a situation I was talking about it with earlier with the brothers that someone in my neighborhood, a gentleman, stood in front of my car as I was driving down the street in my neighborhood, told me what the F was I doing in his neighborhood, and told me to get out my neighborhood. This is in my neighborhood. I live in a majority white neighborhood. I think out of about 200 homes, there's probably 4 or 5 families that are black or of color. And I actually was taken aback by that. But anyway, speed it up. I filed a complaint with the police, and I had to meet the police at the police station. And I told him I didn't get out of the church until late at night. I had a service to do. And he said, well, can you meet at 10 o'clock? I said, I won't get home to 10. And I didn't want him to come to my house. I didn't feel comfortable with the police coming to my house at 10 o'clock at night. So he said, meet me at the station. So I came to the station, but I had to meet him at the station, and the station is closed at 5 o'clock. And so it was pitch black outside, and I was nervous at the police station. That if he were to come out, I'm nervous. I'm at the police station, and I was nervous. And so I feel you on that, Roosevelt. I think that we have to have a conversation about, or actually get some assistance about dealing with the fact that we're nervous about being in the presence of the police. So, who else wants to articulate what the crisis is in their estimation? What's the crisis? What's the crisis in your own individual life, or what's the crisis in America right now?
Well, I can't say for America. I think, as Blue said it, pick one. There's a lot of things that are happening, and there's enough of us to go around to grab an issue and try to tackle it, and see how we can move our people, our congregations towards that as well. But I feel Roosevelt. I was driving the other day, and Highway Patrol pulled up behind me, and it's like, I'm not doing anything, but do I gun it? Do I slow down? Man, I'm doing all kinds of weird stuff. just like, whoa, just calm down.
You was gonna run?
I just calm down.
Never run, man.
Never run. Yeah. Yeah. Got a story about that one, but yeah. So, there's a lot going on, man, and I think. Right now, for me personally, I have to listen to a lot. I got to absorb a lot and process it myself, because I don't want to talk too much and say stuff completely out of my emotions, because I'm a leader. I'm a leader. I can't just lose my mind. I can't just go off of all of my feelings. I've got to wrestle with my flesh, my feelings, and the text. So that it has a lot of pressure on it, on me as a leader. Thinking about my wife, my family, my home, protection, all those things are running through my mind. How people perceive me now, it's a lot going on, man. And I think right now, the best thing for me is prayer, absorbing, and writing things out, and my process, how I feel like I may be handling things in the future.
Eric, now where you stay, Eric? What do you see? I mean, what do you imagine as a crisis? Your church is in the North Side. You're in South Carolina right now. You're moving around. Aren't you from New York?
Yes, from Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York. So what do you see as your crisis right now?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. What I'm seeing and what I'm feeling as a crisis right now is I believe the base of the crisis starts in the homes of people, because. And I say this because we're not teaching our children. I believe there was a void missing in many cats' life that I talk to now, where they really don't know how to even act when it comes to the law, how to respond with their approach, no matter if they did something wrong or they didn't do anything at all. And I believe we have a crisis when we have multiple single-family homes starting there, and we don't have men in the homes to actually build up the children, to teach them, to train them up. That's one area I see that we lack in. And when we don't know our rights, we don't know the amendments, that's a crisis in itself, because when we don't know something, we really don't know what to stand on. We can't speak the law back to law enforcement. So they're enforcing the law, but they don't know the law. So
right.
and when you look at it, they're enforcing something they know nothing about. So then we have to enforce our Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So
I go ahead. Oh, I think we lost it. Did I lose you? There you go. Come on, you get go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
I'm back. Yeah. So I believe that's a major part of the crisis that I see, in my opinion, the base, the ethos of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I was well, I forgot. I should let Mitchell Blue. You already tackled this.
Yeah, but just to echo what Eric was saying, I definitely feel like, as a people, we've got to further educate ourselves on the laws, and
Yes.
we've got to definitely go deeper and understand what our rights actually are. Because for many of us, whenever we encounter law enforcement, encounter police, whether good or bad, our first inclination is, nerves, and then our nerves get us to the point where we don't know how to respond, and then we get into a failure to comply, or now you're resisting and this, that, and the third. But
Yes.
what are really your rights when you get pulled over? What information do I have to provide to the police officer? What information do they have to provide to me? Understand how the conversation should go. Because if we don't understand how the conversation should go, then we don't understand when our rights have actually been violated. When officers are not following what they should be following as far as proper protocols. So if we don't
Right.
understand that, then we don't have anything to hold their feet to the fire with in that regard. So I definitely think that's another piece that we've gotta get to. But it is the self education, and it is us relearning. And as I was getting to in my previous comments, unlearning the miseducation that's actually been provided to us, because
Yes.
that to me that is the greatest travesty. I mean, the Bible says it this way: "If your people perish for lack of knowledge," right? And
Yes.
other scripture says, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Right. So it is not the truth that exists, but it is the truth that I know. So something can be a truth, can be a fact, but if I never know it, I never embrace it as truth, then that truth never becomes power for me. I don't get access to the power that truth actually holds. I mean, we just celebrated Juneteenth on last Friday, right?
Right.
So we celebrate Juneteenth based on the fact that there were 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation that folks were still working as slaves. They were free on paper, but they had not been exposed to the truth that they were actually free. So for two
Right.
additional years, they served, they gave labor that they weren't even required to give. But if the truth of that information would have gotten to them sooner, then we wouldn't celebrate Juneteenth. We celebrate another holiday, but it's just that whole piece, and just understanding that flow of information, the need for knowledge, and the need for us to educate ourselves and become aware, so we understand when our rights have been violated, and we
Mm-hmm.
know how to hold those individuals accountable at that point.
I was watching some videos, and I also tell brothers when I teach these classes, when the police approach you, this is not a good response. I wasn't doing anything, or I'm
Mm.
not doing nothing.
Yeah.
That never works.
Never
And so what
works.
Eric is talking about, we need to educate people as the proper response. There's a lot of, I will imagine 85 to 95% of the brothers in jail right now told the police wasn't doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing nothing. That is not a proper response. I just saw something on social media where the guy got pulled over by the police, and he tried to go into his house. Well, they pulled you over. You can't go into your house and say, "Oh, I didn't do nothing wrong. Don't touch me." That's not the
Right.
proper response at that time.
Right.
And so, and then we have to go out and protest and be frustrated because that bad choice he made. Because cops don't have some bad cops. I'm being nice by saying bad cops, but bad cops don't have sometimes the level of de-escalating. They escalate, and so you're right. I think it's important for us as pastors, as leaders, as fathers, to educate our boys and even our men, because some men can articulate the laws or a proper response. If you can't do anything else, brother, don't run and don't say I didn't do nothing. You
Yeah.
did something, but you're gonna need to articulate what you did in that moment. I'm coming from the store. I'm going into my home. Something like that. But it's so I have a 21-year-old son. My son. He's my son, and I am so concerned. The dude went around for months he got a new car. He didn't go get the tags. I'm like, no, Romeo, man, brother. It's not like, get the tags. The line is long. Brother, get the tags. I mean, that's to help him understand. You're inviting them. He's had a sheltered life. You're inviting them to engage you. And then what can you say when you're wrong? But so that's, I get fired up over that one. But anyway, just recently,
As you should.
I want to tackle him. I want to tackle him. But recently, brothers, you're pastors, and I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. And so, one of my leaders, Pastor Andy Thompson, just recently gave a long response to part of what's going on in America right now. And I love the fact that he dug in and he spoke truth to power. And I'm gonna be honest with you. When I left, I ran for mayor of South Bend, and I lost to this guy named Pete Buttigieg, and I was frustrated with my church that I was at because they didn't really support me like I thought they should. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna pause for a minute. I got something in the mail. It said a new church is coming to town, and it was Pastor Rob Parsley was planning a new church in Elkhart, Indiana. I said, this must be God. I went over there to a service, and I helped him plant a church. And I told them I'm going to serve up to 3 years. It's like an internship, but I went and pastored my father-in-law's church. So I didn't finish that, but I was there at Rob Parsley's church, and I got to witness and see some things and hear about some things. But Rob Parsley made a statement recently, and it was racially motivated. I don't know. It was filled with some racial insensitivity. And I think right now in America, as a father, as a pastor, as a father, how do you feel about black people going? I'm going to put you on the spot. How do you feel about black people going to churches led by white men in this season, white pastors in this season right now, when out of their mouth they're saying some things and they apologize for it? Like Giglio said something about he wants don't say white privilege, say white blessings. I mean, come on, man. So what are we to do with this right now? How do you feel about this as a father whose sons look up to those in authority? So if you have somebody at a church and the pastor is not reflecting of your same hue, how do you feel about that? I mean help me out.
Yeah. Well, for me, as a black man, I attended a church that had a Caucasian, a white pastor, and it was difficult because he could not identify with my struggle. So how could he preach to me and build me up if he knew nothing about my life? And so that's the challenge I see. The question I have for people today: how can you serve under a white man that doesn't know your struggle, your challenge that you face, hasn't been through that? I mean, he can tell you to pray about it, but the old mother told me, son, you get on your knees and you pray, but you get on your feet and you go do some work. So after you finish praying for me, I need to go do something. You can't protest with me. You can't really speak to my situation because you really know nothing about the skin I'm in. So it's very difficult. And I believe they're amazing white men of God, but I believe that it's difficult for me to serve under a white pastor and knowing in this season that we are disconnected in that, especially if they're not speaking up right now for our benefit.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody else want to jump on that?
Yeah.
Roosevelt, go ahead. When you took your breath, speak on it. Don't hold back. Let it rip.
No, this is going out to people all over the globe, and so I don't want to say something in case y'all might want to run for office at a later date.
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me.
The truth shall
Go ahead, man. I just speak truth. All you do is speak truth.
Yeah.
I'll just say I'll say this, that part of what Pastor Andy said, and I've communicated with you how, and I've told my own personal brother, I don't. It ain't time. I'm just getting to the point where I'm open to having a conversation with that kind of conversation with a white person about that kind of topic, about their own racism in an open form like that. It took a while. My anger was so uncontrollable that I just wasn't prepared. I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. But I finally got to the point where it's no longer anger. It's still a lot of anger there. I ain't gonna lie, still a lot of anger there. But to get to your question, I still to this point don't understand how an African American person, man or woman, can sit under a white pastor when there is a quality black pastor in their area. To me, there's not a reason that you could give me that would suffice or outweigh all of the other reasons as to why you should be over there supporting the black pastor. Now, here's part of my frustration is I've come to understand that many white people are just flat out racist. Especially some of our older white people are just flat out racist, but it has been so it's in them so deep that they don't even see it, that they don't even know it. And it comes out, but that's all they know. Like all they've known was that whites are better than blacks. Like they grew up in everything around them from their childhood all through their adulthood. They've seen us as less than, and so it's almost to a point. Now I'm not wiping the slate clean because once you become an adult, hey, listen, you got to give an account of your actions, but it's in them so much. And what frustrates me the most is it took George Floyd being killed like that for them to even be willing to have the conversation.
Yes.
And then when we have the conversation, you say some stuff like you don't like the word privilege, that you'd rather use the word blessing. That's the conversation that you want to have. Yeah. I'm not ready to have that conversation because I'm still trying to maintain my Christianity in the midst of all of this chaos. And that kind of stuff, I couldn't have been Lecrae sitting at that table nodding my head, and I couldn't have been me, because whether we was on national TV or whatever, that just could not have been me. I just couldn't have been me. But but for the person who attends a white church, I don't get it. I just don't understand. Like my brother mentioned, they can't identify. They just can't do it. And you look at the leadership. It's too often the conversation even now is only being had. And I have a PR specialist friend who lives in Raleigh. We were talking about this the other day. Even all of these companies who are coming out with all this Black Lives Matter. I was watching a movie on Freeform the other day, and I mean every 10 seconds in the lower third was something about Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter and all of this and that. And I'm like, yo, miss me with that right now. Because this has been going on for so long, and I understand everybody who's saying we're making progress and all of that. But listen, I'm not beyond, but I'm not interested in having a conversation that's not going to lead to actual change. I'm not interested in trying to help talk you through a situation that at the end of the conversation, you're just going to say, well, you know what? I'm sorry. That's not really enough at this point because the laws have not changed. Now, once some laws change, once some policies are changed, once you have just as many Black elders and deacons at your church and your board is an actual reflection of your membership, once you as a white pastor is willing to say, you know what, I'll give you an example. And I'm sorry, I'm probably rambling a little bit. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago.
We'll give you one more minute. We'll give you one more minute. Go ahead.
All right, a couple of years ago. I told you. I can get on.
You fired up. It's okay.
White guy, great guy, really good guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but I had a pastor friend of mine, really good guy. They wanted to try to start to build this whole unity thing in Charlotte of Black and white churches. When we get to heaven, it's not going to be this race or that race. And I said, you're right. Right. All right, yeah. But they wanted to do some event on a Sunday. And here's what was proposed. What was proposed was that we shut our service down, not have a morning service, and go over to their church, and I would preach, and our worship team would sing.
Oh wow!
And that's you say oh wow, but we've been singing and dancing for their Lord have mercy. I said you're gonna make me go there.
But you said you was gonna preach though. That's the first time I heard him say you're gonna preach. Normally they don't get to preach.
Dancing for their entertainment. We've been singing and dancing for their entertainment for a long time. But anyway, and what I explained to him, I said, "Well, brother, I can't do that." I said, "We're on to something. I don't want to just not have service all day, for this effort." I said, I wouldn't mind. I said maybe I could come by myself and my service still go on, or maybe we can have it later. Or better yet, why don't you shut your service down? Come over with us. If it's about unity, let's talk about it.
What was his response?
You already know what the response was. We never had a conversation about it after that. And here's what I'm saying all that to say. It has never, the talk about unity and coming together and having a conversation, we're always having to go to them. When the real change is when they're willing to come to us. When will their members? Pastor Andy talked about this the other day. He got one of the fastest growing churches in America, and it's all black. And you can't tell me there's not high level of
10,000
excellence in
members.
ministry. You can't
Right.
tell me that the worship
At
team
least
ain't on point.
10,000.
You can't tell me the preaching ain't on point. You can't tell me that he doesn't fit all of those, and that's why you can't go there. No, the devil is a lie. If you really want to talk about unity, then you would say, you know what? We need to be willing to sit under some black leadership and some black authority, and
That's a good statement.
stop acting like our ice is a little colder.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they are from the north. But Robert, so
Hey, brother, 32 degrees. 32 degrees. No
Right.
matter where he is.
Robert, what? On that note, man, your response. Any response to that? You heard Pastor Andy's conversation.
Yeah,
think?
man, I heard it, Doc. He said some real impactful statements that I thought were really profound.
So, what's your take on it, though? What's your take on it? I mean, how do you feel as a pastor now in this season, and you know the racist comments that these white pastors who were filled up with? I'm telling you, Rob Parsley is 50%, if not 70%, black, right?
Yeah.
And making racist statements, and we
Sure,
still
they
going to
gotta-
the church.
Right. So, you know, people need to decide what they want to do. They heard what they heard, and they need to decide what they're going to do. I'm on the ground level. I'm not near Rod Parsley's level or Pastor Andy's level as it relates to saying.
How many white
that-
folks at your church?
I don't have any white people in my church.
Oh, okay.
I haven't. It's not like I've solicited either. But here's what I have been doing for the last several years. We've been creating conversations about race and trying to engage that dialogue. And now that things have moved the way they have, then the conversations are profitable, even more profitable. So I'm working at the same time. I tell anybody, yo, you got to decide. I was just talking to an African-American woman who attends a predominantly white church, and she's not leaving. She has no, the pastor's white. They have a lot of Caucasian leadership. She's solid. She has relationships. She enjoys the word. Yo, I'm not going to tell somebody to leave their church if that's where they feel. The other piece of it is, besides being black, they feel there's a call there to serve it. Who am I? So I get that. I let people do my job as a leader in my area, is to promote unity. And my church will tell you, I've been pushing for that for several years, trying to get us all to the table. And it's been happening very small in segments, but now I'm having profitable conversations. I've preached in white platforms. I've come to their services. They've tried to come to connect with me, but my church is too small. And we're trying to have community revivals and things of that nature. So I'm like this, man. Let's do it, right? Let's support each other. Let's be black. Let's do all that. But at the same time, I'm really open for dialogue, because if I'm not talking,
Robert, we're always open for dialogue. It's never not been open for dialogue.
Never been a question.
It's never been the case. That's not a courageous statement. That's like saying, you know, we've always been open to dialogue, but can we have the dialogue at our place? Mitchell, what do you think?
No,
let me say this. Let me wait. I had the dialogue about this. Again, I don't like to speak in generalities. I know what I'm doing. I can only speak from my context. Right. So when President Trump was voting in, and my church, my African Americans, we couldn't understand why some of our comrades were so gun-ho about his language and trying to make him a Christian and all this kind of jazz. A pastor friend of mine, Caucasian, came to my church, and we talked it out, and he walked away with a bigger understanding on our perspective and how we felt, and it really changed the game for him in his conversation with his church. So all I can speak to is my context. See what I'm saying?
Right. That's good.
So
Mitchell, you were saying
different things in that piece, though. So going back to why us as African Americans sometimes will remain in churches where there's Caucasian leadership. I think there are two sides to the coin. So I agree with Robert's point. I'm not here to tell someone where they should or should not worship, or to tell someone where they do or do not feel led.
I don't think that's the question, though. But go
No, but no, I'm gonna get to the answer to the question.
All right.
So I don't feel like I'm here to tell anybody where they should serve or anything like that, or where they feel led or called to. But I do feel like there's still something that we as a people have to deal with as well. Just like there has been the complex of white privilege and white superiority that has actually been inbred in them, there's still an inferiority complex that we have to deal with as well, that has been taught to us, that it has been inbred in some of us. And the reality is, it is one of those PTSD type things. I think it affects us, but sometimes we either mask or deny the fact that we're infected, affected, and impacted in that way.
Right.
And we find ourselves in situations that we don't understand why we're there, and it's simply because of that complex and that mentality. It's for lack of a better term, massa been good to me. You know what I'm saying? And we end up getting stuck. Oh, Master, let me play his keyboard and sing 3 songs on Sunday, and it just go good. No, man, come on. But I mean, that's just sometimes how we end up getting caught. And I think for me, like I said, I've had partnerships, I've had relationships, and I've worked with other people, especially here in this city, in regards to trying to do the black, the white unity. And it is sometimes, most times, it is us really having to assimilate to their culture versus them really assimilating to ours. Now, the creativity of us is we're adaptive. We can go in and out of arenas, situations, and for many of us, we've had to be well versed and bilingual. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? To be able to speak to both, to both genres, and be able to do it effectively. Where that is the issue that our counterparts don't have. They don't really have the ability to be bilingual, and they would be out of their depth in many of our worship experiences. So it's like, so that's why it's always the come to me versus me come to you. Right, wrong, or indifferent is what it is. I think at some point, though, there has to be the assimilation to our culture. Look at the landscape of our city. I can think of only one church in all of Charlotte, and that ain't even in Charlotte, that really you see an African American leader and a largely Caucasian membership.
Well, you're probably talking about somebody in Indian land or something like that.
And somewhere in that general
But,
vicinity.
but see, that's a unique situation. So that's
It
not a
is.
good example because he's
It is.
not.
Well, what church is that? I want to know. I'm interested in
It's
knowing about that
Transformation Church, but it's not. That's not a proper example because he's a unique case.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
NFL
you got to give
football
you gotta give
player. He's
and
married
who's he
outside
married
the
to?
culture, and so
Thank
he'll
you.
tell you himself he's a unique situation.
Right.
So
Right.
he'll say that himself. So, but I don't want to. I'm not trying to put those. I just want to say, we all have good friends that are white pastors. We all do. The issue is why don't our people go to that particular go to why don't our people go to that church? And more so, how come they can't come to our church? But the question, D. Reed asked this question, Eric. I want to see if you answer this. Everybody should answer this one. He said, for each of you pastors, are you a black man first or a Christian man first? Eric, what do you think?
Oh boy, oh boy. I had to first.
D asked it. D. Reed asked it. He's from Portland,
Reed.
Oregon.
But and to be honest, I just have to be honest. When I was coming up as a child, I wasn't taught that I was a Christian first. I was taught that I was a black man and how to operate as a black man. So it's all about your upbringing, I feel like. So for me, I'm a black man and I just happen to be a believer. And if I could say one thing about what we just talked about, and
Go ahead, say what you want to say.
when I look at what's happening with many of our black brothers and sisters attending other ministries with Caucasian pastors, and I can't help but to think about when they were coming to some of our ministries. Not saying the people on the call online today, but many of them left the black ministry, the black church, because they were done wrong. They were taken advantage of, and things of that nature. So now they're turning there, and I believe it's a little different. Things are happening, but we have to look at what caused them to leave. Ultimately, because it's easier for us to. And the question is really, why is it easier for us to follow the white man than our own?
Yeah,
You know what I
Can
mean?
I jump in there, Barrett?
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Go
'Cause
ahead,
I
real
don't,
quick.
you know, I
I'm
don't
gonna
want to
give
take
you
up my
45 seconds.
45 seconds. I understand exactly where my brother's question is coming from, and we do got. All right, I don't want to jump in. Yeah, we do got to ask the question, why did they leave? But here's just because I've had these conversations with several people before,
Uh,
and it's not coming out. I want you. I'm begging you to come back to my church. That's not what this is about. But here's the problem that I have is that kind of question would lead a person to assume that the white church don't have no problem. And it's almost like that's the mindset that I go over there because it's stress free. I go over there because they got their stuff together. Well, it only looks like that because you ain't involved. And then here's the other thing. Here's the
right.
other
That's
other
true.
part of that question. That the other part of that thought process is that one, you're not involved, but number two, um, I don't understand how is it that you're willing, because some people will use this whole phrase of I want to be a part of the solution. Well, great. How about you will kick and scream and pitch a fit, won't serve in ministry, won't halfway tie, won't halfway give while you at our church. But you, or better yet, let's say we jacked up. Let's just say our church is messed up. You won't use your gifts and talents to help fight the battle of getting us healthy, but you would rather go fight the battle of trying to convert them and into being fair and a just Christian in terms of race
I don't even know if they
relations.
try to convert them. I think they just go to worship with them, and I think
No,
that
but that's a lot of times
I
that's
think
the
there's a
excuse
different.
that's given.
It's a different.
That's the excuse that's
Yeah,
given.
you're right. You're right. You're right. But I also think that what has happened is what Eric was leading to. Why did they leave? And you said something. Good question, Eric. Asked why they leave, and the statement you made was, well, one thing is they're not involved in the leadership, so they don't even know the problems that church even has. So they're disconnected. Because if you look at a white pastor's church and his leadership, generally speaking, they don't have black folk in their top leadership tier. It's just this. It's uncommon. But there is one or two. There's one example here in town where he's probably 95% black, and he's a white pastor, and he can't help but have leadership that doesn't that reflects his congregation. But that's a rarity within itself. Anybody wants to add to this before we go back to the question from D. Reed?
Yeah.
Ooh, that D Reed question.
Hit that D. Reed question. Go ahead, Mitch. Tackle that D. Reed question. That question.
Man, so it's interesting because so for many of us, and I think Eric was kind of hinting to that. I knew about my blackness before I really knew about my status as a Christian. So I
Yes.
became more identified with my blackness. So it becomes, should the black man be the noun and the Christian be the adjective, or should the Christian be the noun and the black man be the adjective? You know what I'm saying? And the descriptive nature of the English language and how we kind of put
I
nouns
don't
and
know about
adjectives.
all that, man. You so smart, man. I just want,
No,
I just
man.
want to know
I'm just
you.
saying.
I think he just wants to know, man.
Oh,
Are you a black man first or a Christian man first?
So I can't. So it's like I can't deny either. So I have to be both, and I have to coexist, because if I don't say that I'm a Christian first, then I exalt my blackness above God's divinity and redemptive work in my life to a certain.
Okay, well, that's
You
one
know what
thought.
I'm saying? But I cannot exclude and I cannot deny the black experience in my Christian experience. So it's
Right.
like, so it's a tough question to wrestle with. It's a tough one to say, what do I lead with? I don't think I lead with either or. I think I have to lead with both, because they're inexplicably connected and I can't disconnect them. So I think that my blackness informs my Christianity. I'll say it that way, or
Okay, that's good.
at least puts a lens on it. Let's say it that way.
All right. All right. Robert.
both and I'm teaching my son how to be. He's a black man, and I'm teaching him Christian values. Both and.
All right.
I'm not
Okay.
separating.
All right. Well, you know what? That's I'm now that you guys are saying it, I'm thinking about it. I wasn't going to answer this question, but I'm going to answer it because a couple of weeks ago when I had that altercation within my neighborhood with the white guy,
Who's black first?
No. But you know what? For the first minute, I was black, and I was gonna treat him as he deserved to be treated. But then my Christianity stepped in.
Yes, sir.
And so instead of me getting out of the car and treating him like he needed to be treated, I pulled out my camera. He thought I was gonna hit him. He stood there waiting for me to sock him and punch him, and I wouldn't. I said, "Oh no." I said, "I'm a pastor. I'm gonna record this. Repeat what you just said." So I flipped it, and I think it's maybe it's and both, and one alternates in different situations, but I don't think we can even separate it. Mm-hmm. I think it's inseparable in a sense. I know that's my take on it, just thinking about it. And plus, my Jesus don't look like the Jesus on most church walls. So,
I was ready to say I don't know.
My Jesus. I mean, we brothers. You know what I'm saying? And so, we it comes together. My Jesus look like a lot like me. Just kinkier hair, and so we just we together. I don't know if we together. I don't know, man. Eric, you started something, brother.
Hey, man, let's get
you started something, man.
Let's talk about it. Let's get it.
But let's talk about. But right now, I think what can we do? What should we do as pastors? Is there something we should do about getting white people to come to our church, or do we expect them? Is there something going to change right now because we're protesting together? We're playing basketball together. I went to the mountains, Asheville, and I was driving down this town, and I heard this large, loud hip hop music thumping. The trunk starts to rattle. I'm hearing this going on, and I look at who was driving, and it was not a black guy. It was a white guy, a young white guy. And so, we're cross-culturally, the younger generation, there's not really much separation. Should we see white people come to our church? And then, have you had white people come and serve at your church more than 3 weeks? I mean, anybody?
So I think
I put a low bar. I said 3 weeks.
It goes back to that conversation of assimilation, man. And I think, again, you can't come to my church expecting a different. So don't come to my church expecting me to be like, we're going to sing 3 hymns from the hymn book off key. And they're going to be, you know what I'm saying?
So you haven't had any white people stay at your church for more than 3 weeks?
Not more than 3 Sundays to come visit. It's like, yo, again, so black church is loud. Black church is energetic. Black church, I am still, again, as I said, I am unapologetically still very much charismatic and Pentecostal at my core.
They have churches like that too.
Yeah, but they don't have folk to come visit me. So I had a feeling though, if they came to visit me, they would be good. They would love, kind of what we do and the way that we worship God. So I guess it begins. So I've been on both sides of that conversation too. So it's like, should you assimilate to attract who you want to attract, or do you remain true to who you are? And we've always erred on the side of, I am going to remain true to who I am, who I believe that God has called us, the type of ministry that I believe God has called us to. And if that's the case, he's going to cause us to be able to draw those that he desires for us to draw, because we are going to lift him up still in our context.
So what you're saying is no white people have come to your church and stayed. No white people have come to your church and stayed.
Nah, man. I ain't been blessed in that way.
No. Robert, how about you?
No, none have come and stayed.
Are you expecting them to come now?
I'm always open. All right. Anybody want to come? They're welcome. We're gonna be us. We're gonna do what we do. I got the Hammond organ there.
But do you think today's society is shifting to a point where it's palatable for them to come at least visit our church?
Probably. Some will probably want to visit just because they've seen me on Facebook, want to check it out, want the experience. Right. Will they stay?
They're always invited. Yeah.
Everybody's there. Yeah.
Hey, okay, Roosevelt, how many have come and stayed at least 3 weeks?
I've had plenty come, but none have stayed. I don't think that you can make anybody do anything. I don't think that's
No,
wise.
not talking about making them. You just
Yeah,
providing
no.
the
I'm
space for
saying,
them.
yeah, yeah. When I was planning my church, our mission, our goal was to be a multicultural church, and we just kept being reminded that that was going to be a much tougher task than I ever anticipated. So we would
Hmm.
always have. I've mentioned this to you before as well. Probably for the first 2 years, I didn't put any faces, any colored faces on any of our material because I didn't want you to make a decision that you didn't want to go to a black church before you knew it was a
Right.
black church. So
Right.
and that worked. We had a lot of white people who would show up, especially we were down in Pound at the time as well. We had a lot of white people that showed up, but when they showed up and saw it was basically an all black church, they just didn't stay. They had nice things to say, they were very nice and cordial,
So you didn't have them stay
but
more than
they
3 weeks
didn't
either.
stay.
No, no.
No,
Rob,
no.
Eric, how about you, Eric? Anybody? How's your success been?
Well, actually, I've been pastoring a good 17 months now, and before the
17
pandemic,
long months. Yeah.
yeah, it's been amazing. I wouldn't even say long. It feels like 3 months, but
Right.
we've had great support for some white people who actually came, and actually they still support because they see that I'm not looking to get them in the church building. I'm looking to be the church. And so I'm like, how do we do church and present church in a way that, not that they're comfortable, but this is who I am, this is who we are, and if you're gonna rock with
Right.
us, you rock with us. And if this is not the culture for you, it's cool. Go
Right.
where you can be fed. But as for me and
Yes.
my house, I believe the word of God, the scripture says, if my people who are called by my name, first you have to be have some relationship with me in order to understand and receive what I'm saying. So I believe that this question is a little difficult for me to answer because I haven't had that success. But I did have white people visit more than 3 weeks. Yes.
Nah, man, that's a win. That's a win. That's a win. That's a win. Let me say
And
this.
I'm
Let me say
straight
this.
up hood, Buffalo, straight up and down, just straight up and
Right.
down like 6 o'clock. So I'm not going around rocking out. I'm
Yeah.
dropping the funk. I'm a musician by trade, and that's how we get it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, but that's good though. That's good. I mean, but like I said today's generation, it's cross cultural. I mean,
Yes.
they're in the hip hop much as we are in the hip hop. They're in the beats like we in the beats.
Yeah,
So
that's real.
it's more acceptable. I have actually had plenty of visitors, but only 2 weeks is about the max I've ever gotten. That's why I said, have you had more than 3 weeks? So you know, I thought I'm like Roosevelt. When I first planted my church, I didn't put any pictures on it either. I wanted to be open and accepting, and I want them to come and find out that we were black. I wanted to present the best possible presentation, best quality, best professionalism, all that. And but I'm happy for Eric's success, and I'm hoping that this is a season where they can respect the Jesus in us. I mean,
Right.
the
But I think
anointing
that's
is
the culture.
anointing
Go
is
ahead.
here. No, go ahead, Eric.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I believe that's the culture. I believe people connect with what they adapt to. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So uh, if they see something that they relate to, then they can connect with it. So, some white people may be looking for a change. They try the white church and it's just not for me. Just like
Right.
some of our black brothers and sisters. They're like, I tried the black church. I want to do something different. So it's 50-50.
It's where people
Yes.
find community, man. So
Yeah.
it goes back to Acts. To me, it goes back to Acts. It is, where do we have all things common? And can we exist and say that we have all things common if our color is the only thing that is the distinction between us? I think that there is a model that we can get to, that we can have koinonia and it be a mixture of black and white. But I think that it has to be an environment of acceptance, an environment of understanding, and an environment where you're intentional about building that culture and intentional about building that community. And those people have to be intentional about being a part of that, and not
Yes.
just
Yeah.
on the surface being a part of it, in body being a part of it, in word being a part of it, and not just being word, deed, and all the other things that encompass
Yeah.
it. And
I'll
Well,
even
I'm
say this.
hoping.
it starts
Go
from the
ahead.
leadership down.
Yeah. Eric,
I
you want
was
to say
gonna say
something?
that.
Oh,
I was
what's
gonna
that?
say that. You know, there's. I think the next generation will have a. This will be a lesser issue. Because the next generation, I haven't found a better words to put it, but they're not necessarily black or white. They are their own thing, and they see color, but they embrace it more than they run from it. And I think, another 10 years from now, maybe even sooner, I'd say probably another 10 years from now, I think you'll see a lot more of the multicultural churches. Like my daughter's generation, I think you'll see a lot more multicultural churches. And I think that even some of the younger white people in her demographic, if they keep the fighting tenacity and of the multiculturalism that they have where she is now, then I think down the road, 10 years from now, I think you'll have a whole lot more than what we see today.
I want to believe that, but I've also taught in middle school, and I've also seen what happens at lunchtime,
Yeah.
and I still see black kids with black kids, and I
Yeah.
see white kids with white kids, and Spanish speaking kids with Spanish speaking kids, and the Vietnamese kids with the Vietnamese kids.
Yeah.
So although we believe that this cross culturalism is happening naturally, the lower generation, there's something about being in America what still divides us and segregates us. I don't know if it's how I can't explain it because these are kids, and
Right.
they may still go to class together, but they're not eating together.
Right. Because even though they're still kids, there's still things that are being taught in their environments at
Right.
home.
Yes.
And again, racism is not something that, you just, one day wake up and say, oh, I'm a racist. No, it's something that is taught to you. It is something that is inbred in you. Just like naturally we have a fear of police because it's something that has been taught to us. It is
Right.
something that is inbred in us to say, hey, if you see the police, you need to straighten up and walk right because
Quick.
don't give them any reason to question you, to intimidate you, to even have any type of engagement um, and with you. So somebody just posted, have you sat down and had to talk with your children? and that's it. So it's like, yeah, I had to sit down and have the talk with my kids because I'm engaging them in this season of protest. I'm engaging them in these conversations because I do want them to grow. I do want them to be better. And I want to believe what Roosevelt is saying. But at the same time, I think too, not only are things being taught still at home, but I think as we continue to go down these roads of incidents continuing to happen and there is no change, then our kids are seeing the past repeat itself and they're going back into these modes of saying, I'm angry still, I'm upset still, and don't try to come and make it over and make it better because it ain't working. And it
Right.
still pushes us back into our silos.
Hey. Have you sat down, Robert, and had to talk with your kids? The talk.
No, not the talk, because again, my son's 5, my daughter is just turned 9. So she's asking me questions about the presidency and some of the things she's saying, but I respond to it in a way where I think it's age appropriate for her,
Right.
but not the heavy stuff like my grandfather had with me whenever I was a teenager about how to conduct myself, especially with the police and that kind of thing.
Eric, have you had to talk?
I had the somewhat of a talk with my son. He's 10, Eric Jr., and he gets it, but he doesn't get it because all he knows is all his classmates and kids in his community are white. So he's asking questions like, "Daddy, are you saying that they don't like us?" And so I have to say it to a point that they understand. For example, I have people in my community with pools in their backyards, and he's wondering why don't they have people in their pool that that look like us. So it's difficult. I mean, and I'm being very careful with my words. I know I like to keep it a buck and keep it 100, but at the
Right.
same time, uh, I don't want to sow discord in
Mhm.
and it's caused my son to go to school or look at friends and say, "Oh, you're white, you don't like us," and I'm black, I don't like you. So we have to be careful at the age. I have to be careful with what I say to him at
Yes,
this
sir.
age. So we had a small talk, yes,
Yeah.
on the level that he is on.
Roosevelt, with your daughter, I mean, she's about to go into the 9th grade. Have you had to talk with her?
Yeah. It's not just one. It's an ongoing conversation,
Mhm.
and I try to take advantage. I'm real strategic at how I do it, and I haven't sat her down. And I'll tell you, I haven't sat down and had that talk, in an hour session, but I try to give her the space to ask questions. And what and so we recently let her get Instagram recently, right? And that's a blessing and a curse. But one of the positive things about Instagram is that my daughter has seen it's forcing her to ask some questions. Like, why is
Right.
this stuff happening? Because I raised my kids like a lot of us in a bit of a bubble. They don't see a lot of the madness. And I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll find out when they get a little bit older. But we haven't had that talk. We have it over time. And when she asks questions and she opens that door, we have that discussion. And again, I'm constantly trying to help her to learn how to think for herself. And so I don't
Right.
want to tell her everything. I want to teach her how to think and how not to allow other people to determine your values.
Well, I think for me, my son is older, and I still find myself having to have the talk over and over again to remind him that he's 6'3", 6'4", and you're tall, and you stand out, and that means something. And you have to understand and appreciate that. He had one of his friends come over, and he was from South Carolina. He was really excited about the fact that he had this conceal and carry permit and weapon on him. And I'm like, there's a certain responsibility that comes with that, but you don't make that announcement to everybody needs to know that you have a concealed carry, or you walk around with your shotgun. I mean, there's some things that require that's different for us as black men than it is for other people, and to be cognizant of those differences for your sense of survival. And I think that's relevant to, it's about survival. Oh, here's a big question.
Yeah.
How should fathers respond to black men being killed on social media and television?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, man, where we have to. I think someone said it earlier. We have to take time to process it. I know. So speaking me personally, I have to take time to process. I have to give myself a moment to process it and then articulate a response. Because again, as leaders, as people that have relationships, connected in faith community across different platforms and organizations, you never want to be reckless with your words. I think that's the issue that we're running into with some of our Caucasian pastors and friends that are now having to issue all of these retractions and all this other things because they didn't take a moment to think about what they wanted to say, and really how impactful what they articulate will be on those that hear what they're saying. They crafted the statement and the statement sounded good to them, but they didn't judge or evaluate how it would feel to those that are actually receiving it. Now, with that stated, I still feel like my response would still need to be sharp, and I would not be concerned if my response still rubbed some people the wrong way. But in my response, it would be very well thought out, very well articulated, and it would not be devoid of emotion, but it would not be dominated by emotion. Because I feel like sometimes when we allow emotion to dominate the conversation, we're not able to effectively communicate, and really it's just words going back and forth and no one's ever heard.
Right.
And if no one's ever heard, then we never get the real solution.
Yeah. Robert, you want to tackle this question?
I'm right there with Blue. I have to process it, man. I have to process all of it because whether you're watching a George Floyd video or you're watching a quick video like Brooks in Atlanta. I mean, you have to take time to process it, think about it. You're reading, trying to figure out, man, what happened? You know, why again? And you don't want to say, man, well, what did he do? But I want to know everything. Why would he even feel like he needs to do that? You know, and then I'm looking for takeaways. How can I make sure that's not me?
Yeah.
That's not somebody I love. You know, so I mean, as a leader, you know, as emotional as I am and holding myself back, I need to take time to process it so I can put something together that I think is real, that not fake, and is passionate, but yet understanding I still got a job to do at the end of the day. I got to lead people. I got to be able to hurting myself, but I still have to be able to comfort the people that are hurting in my own congregation. So I think I said one time before, even us pastors, we need people to pour into us, or we get counseling ourselves to talk about what we are experiencing and seeing, because along with what we're seeing, men being killed on television and officers and all these things coming up by social media, you know, our people are hurting. They're suffering with cancer. They're, you know, one of my members not too long ago just got over COVID. She contracted COVID in March, and she told me today she just got her strength back. You know, you're walking with people through the issues of life. So along with what we're seeing out there, it's a lot, bro. It's a lot that we have to process.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. COVID is really taking us back.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man.
Eric, what do you think?
Well, that's a tough question, man, because you really don't know how, you know, you should respond as a father off gate until you take, you know, time to really look at what's happening and put yourself in that situation. But I feel my personal opinion is that we need to build more relationship with people who are even in the academy, who are pursuing law enforcement, and kind of examine them, you know, do intensive background checks so we know if there's a racial issue, you know, embedded in them, like where they from and things like that nature, to help us out. And I'm all about, you know, knowing your rights, man, and doing your homework and that Second Amendment. So I really don't know. I can't say I know how I would react. I do not, because like I said, my belief system is a little different. You know, it's kind of like I have to protect myself and my family. You know what I'm saying? So if I was in that situation, I don't know what I would do specifically, but when I see it, it hurts, and it makes me want to rise up and empower our people to do something, to not just allow it to happen, but let's build a defense mechanism. So if it does happen, it's harder for them to get away with it.
Yeah.
Can I pose a question?
Go ahead, please.
Do we feel like as Black fathers and Black pastors that we need to arm ourselves, that we need to bear arms and take up arms to defend? We have a right and a responsibility to do so, but how does that whole piece play into your Blackness, your Christianity, your pastor shepherdness as well?
That sounds a whole lot like, am I Black or am I a Christian type of a question.
Right.
But I'm just saying though.
No, but I understand 100%. Yeah, I understand.
I'm just like, yeah. If you got long guns, I got long guns too. So I want shotguns, I want rifles, I want AR-15. Because I don't want to go through the process of having to get a concealed carry or have to take a handgun class. No, give me a long gun, because I ain't got to register them. I can have as many of them as I want. You know what I'm saying? And if y'all want to go to war, you might think I'm not strapped, but I'm strapped. And not only am I strapped, I'm prepared, I'm trained, and I know how to use the weapons that I own if it comes down to it. But yeah, it's just when it comes down to it, though, am I going to be willing to use it? Am I going? How do I feel about having to execute that right?
Yeah.
To bear arms and to protect my home and to protect my family. How do I really sit with that, and how do I feel? I mean, I know I got the right to do it, but when it comes to executing, I think we have a more conscious heart about it, and maybe others are less heartless or more heartless about it. I don't know. I'm wrestling with that. I wonder,
heavy.
Yeah, that's heavy.
That's a good question.
It's heavy.
Well, Eric said he believes in the Second Amendment. So I mean,
I'll say this: the late great James Brown said, "If you stay ready, you never have to get ready." So I'm from that school. I really believe that. I believe that when people know, because when you are you have your concealed, they see that on your tag. They know that you are a law-abiding citizen, because there's certain qualifications you have to meet. And 9 times out of 10, they think twice before they act on you. So my thing is, I'd rather stay ready so I won't have to get ready. So instead of them, that way, if anyone was to come and if cuckoo want to get cuckoo that day, we got a way to, I can, pray for them. We can lay hands on them, and we can ask God to forgive them and pray that they made it in if they do try to act out.
That's what Malcolm said.
I refuse to be. If we think about it, like the situation that happened in Charleston, you're in Bible study, teaching the Word of God, and cuckoo comes in and start firing. But we're so big on the Lord.
No. Homie, if you come in there and start firing on me, we gonna let fly too. And you say, I'm gonna pray that you walking with Jesus. Apparently you won't. You coming into church killing them folks. So wherever you make your home is where you make your home.
Listen, do you know him? Do you know him?
Right? Do you know him? I think you posed a good question, man. I think Roosevelt and I had this conversation about, I've never been one to have a weapon because, when I was younger, I had a little temper. And so I thought it was wisest for me not to have one until I was mature enough to manage my temper. And I'm mature enough to manage my temper now, but I also have PTSD. So I'm at the protest. I'm from Los Angeles. Eric said he's from Buffalo. I understand a little bit about Buffalo, but I'm from Los Angeles. And I saw a guy with a red rag wrapped around his mouth, around his face, and I couldn't handle it for about 15 seconds. It really got into my spirit. I mean, so I know there's still something inside of me that I need to be cognizant of, but at the same time, I want to protect my family. And so,
so if you had been armed that night when homie ran up on you in your neighborhood, would that situation have gone down differently?
Now, what's crazy is this: I measured him to see if he was armed, and I saw based on what he had on, he probably was not.
Okay.
But when I got out, I made certain that if he was, I was close enough to manage the situation. Now, if I would have been, I probably would have been more comfortable. But I also understand I come from the school of hard knocks too, so I've been beaten up and I've given some beat down. So I'm cool with whatever it is it's gonna be. I'm cool with it. However you present it, I'm cool with it. So, that's what I'm sorry. I'm from. Whatever it is, I'm cool with it. But I don't know, man. I don't think I would have, because I measured him. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
but however you want to bring it, I'm cool with it.
Right. And when I talk about the Second Amendment, I'm saying use wisdom. We're not just trigger happy looking to do something.
Right.
This is for protection. If it boils down to it, am I going to allow an intruder to attack my family, to come against me? You know what I'm saying? I have to protect myself. I'm yearning to be like Jesus, but Peter is just my man. I just love him. I may have to draw and slice off somebody's ear. You know what I'm saying? But that's my point. So I don't, and really it just shows that you're a law-abiding citizen. I'd rather have the paperwork and everything in place than get caught up with a handgun and have to go to prison for breaking the law.
Right. That's
Right.
right.
I'd
That's
rather
right.
have it. I'd rather have it and not have to use it
Yes.
than need it and not have it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True indeed. True indeed. Well, gentlemen, it's late in the hour, but I'm gonna give y'all I'm gonna get to some solutions. How as pastors? Here's a question for you guys. I like this question here. We're pastors, and so we're leaders, and I think pastors are a unique brand of leader because you do have to balance the Jesus in you and the fact that you are representing God in everything that you do. You don't have a moment to be ungodly publicly, and
Not
so
publicly.
I said publicly, and so well, for you all, what does leading the church look like going into the summer and the fall? Summer just started Saturday, so what's it look like
Saturday.
going into the summer and the fall?
Oh man, for me, it's looking. Of course, with COVID and like with the whole stay-at-home piece, it's looking a lot different than it normally has. But I think the core principles of what we're trying to accomplish over the summer and the fall are the same. We typically try to use the summer to have fun and to keep people engaged. I'm not one of those pastors who beat up people who go on vacation. My thing is get your vacation, enjoy yourself, get your rest, but just make sure you make sure you come back home. Make sure you come back home. But just finding some creative ways because a lot of the creativity that I would use over the summer got used up because of this COVID-19 deal. And so I got to find somewhere to get some new creativity, but just trying to keep it fun, keep it interactive. But really, one of the things that I've been working towards, and I have to have it done before the fall, is have a better digital discipleship system to take a person who's one of those tens of thousands of viewers that y'all get every Sunday. How do you take one of those tens of thousands of viewers y'all get from a viewer to an actual member of your church and a fully functioning member of the church? And what does that look like digitally? And so that's kind of what the direction that I'm moving into in this season.
All right. Who else will take it? Who else will
Yeah,
answer the question?
I think all of us are forced to develop e-church platforms and to have e-church membership to a certain degree. I know one of the things that I've been looking at is we have a new members course that we call Link Training, which is basically just helping people get connected, just really digitizing that and really putting those 4 units into videos now. So if someone does join my church virtually, I don't have to go and teach a new members class. I can point them to a portal and say, hey, go complete these 4 new members courses. And that really gets you engrafted into our church, and we can have follow-up conversations and things like that. So it's really kind of to what Roosevelt is saying, but taking it a step further and even looking at, do we establish even an e-church pastor outside of our regular senior pastor role and my wife's role in functional within our church? Do we take that a step further and do more?
Right. All right. Robert, how about you?
Yeah, man.
What's summer and the fall look like for you?
Oh man, very cautious. Summertime right now, the way it looks. I work in the hospital, and we're seeing the increase of critical care COVID patients. So, and I know Pastor too, who started back in service and had to back out because of some membership catching it. So, working through that process, making sure our members are safe. When we do come back, waiting on some equipment to come in for safety. That's one. Two, like everybody else, the e-platforms, just trying to get my membership. I have a good deal of some older members, and that's fun, working with them and getting connected and seeing how we can keep them engaged. Phone calls, members reaching out to each other, and then and to be honest with you, just trying to prepare for the worst case scenario for the fall. Yeah, I don't see it being pretty, to be honest with you. So,
Eric, what are you doing with the summer and the fall going into it? And after Eric answers the question, everybody get their last statement, man. We want to talk about really what it is like leading in this atmosphere. Your thoughts on solutions. How do we lead in this atmosphere where we're seeing black men brutalized in public view, and how do we wrap that around as leaders and going forward? But Eric, what's it like going into the summer and the fall for you as a pastor, as a leader?
Well, this season is I'm excited about this season because we decided to actually do something different. We decided to really be the church in this summer and really meet the needs of people. There's a lot of hurt and lost people out there that need the church who aren't going online really, but because they want the church to come to them. And that's what we've been doing, and that's been helping our ministry grow greatly, tremendously. This past Thursday for the Juneteenth, we fed the entire sanitation department for Mecklenburg County. And it was great. And people were out there saying, man, a church has never done this. A church, they always want us to come to them. They want us to be their member. They want us to do this for them. But when is the church going to come to us and lend a helping hand and show love? So I believe that this is the season for us to do that. And where we are at Life Turning Point, we're going to worry about the building and what's going to happen later. I'm not focusing on what that's going to look like. Because as far as I'm concerned, we probably won't connect until 2021, just because of everything that's going on that's crazy. But we are really gearing up to be the church and really meet the needs of the people as Christ would. So that's where we are right now, and we're praying for guidance for the next step. But we love where we are and the fruit that we're seeing in this season.
Amazing. All right, so closing thoughts, brothers. I mean, whoo! Where are we going? What we're going to do with this is your leaders. I mean, I talk to leaders all the time. My graduate work was in leadership, but I mean, as a pastor, you're a unique brand of leader, and you see, we're witnessing this as fathers, as black men, as American citizens. I just saw a video today of the Tulsa rally that Mr. Trump had yesterday, and they had American citizens there with AR-15s, AR-13s, whatever, those semi-automatic long guns, there with them around the corner like they're part of a protection unit or a militia or something like that. I mean, we're in a new day. There's men being lynched. Lynching is occurring in America today, like with a rope, not with the actual rope being lynched. Lynchings are taking place today. And we saw George Floyd's life taken for 8 minutes and 46 seconds with a knee on his throat. And we are called to be loving, faithful, forgiving, and all those wonderful things. But you're a pastor, a father, and you're an American and a black man. How do you leave people with something for a sense of hope? Where's the hope? Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna have to run just a few minutes early. So if you don't mind, if I could go first.
You go first. Go ahead.
Yeah. How we're gonna leave moving forward? To be honest with you, man, it's gonna be probably the most strategic and time of leadership that it's ever been. But to put it real simply, one day at a time, brothers. One day at a time. This is too much for any of us to think that we have all the answers. There's too many factors for us to think that we know what's going to happen in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. We have no idea. There's too many things that really don't have much to do with each other. Being black, I mean, in a roundabout way, it has, it's affecting black people a little bit harder than it is other cultures. But COVID-19 don't care what color you are. The truth be told, so they can't control it. There's nothing you can do about it. So taking it day by day and trying to be as practical and faithful to the Lord and what He's called, and trying to find more time to get with Him so that I can hear from somebody who is in control on what direction we need to move. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at it from here on now. But thank you guys. I have to run. But thank you guys so much for your time, Barrett. I appreciate every opportunity, man, to be a part of the conversation. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I love it. Gentlemen, it's great to meet some of you. Good to see some of you again. And just appreciate all that you do. God bless you. And look forward to the next time.
All right, Bishop.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Happy Father's Day.
He's gone. He's gone. All right. So, somebody else, closing statements. Robert, take it.
Yeah. I whatever, exactly what Roosevelt said, man. It's a lot to process, and we've got to do exactly what that Chronicle piece said. Let's pray. Number one, as leaders, we're required to pray in this time, and then find where we can make practical movements, right, in our own context, leading our own congregation into small ways, like my brother Eric said, for whether it's feeding the community, pushing our young people, to let's get out and vote and be engaged locally and be a part of the school system. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done. I think we can do our best to be aware of what's happening, where we can be engaged in the home. That's crucial right now. Engage in the home, and engage God, engage in the home, engage our community. I think we can make some small strides there, but I'm excited about that.
All right. Mitchell, Eric, you go last.
Man, I think at the end of the day, man, we got to lead, and that's really what it is. We have to lead from a place of compassion, but we also have to lead from an informed position as well. So as much as we can do to educate ourselves to further develop and sharpen our leadership skills, and we definitely need to do that. I would encourage all of us, if you haven't read, there's a book that was actually written, the cross and the lynching tree.
Oh, James Combs.
Yeah.
James Combs.
Yeah.
If you haven't read that work, man, definitely take a peek at that, because it's definitely one of those things, man. It challenges us as leaders to both look at, our necessity to deal with the atrocities that we still face, but then to balance that against our Christian walk, and to be honest with our feelings, with our emotions, and deal with the realities of what we actually face, and not deny it, not hide from it, and not try to push it off as though it does not exist. We have real issues in this country. We have real issues with leadership in this country. And as pastors and shepherds, as fathers and leaders of our home and of our churches and of our ministries, we are challenged to deal with those real challenges, to face them head on, and to face them with truth, not denying our emotion and not denying the reality of what exists, but to face that truth head on, man, and come up with creative solutions that display our leadership, our compassion, but then also our fervor for the issues. So yeah.
Brother E. Will, take
Yes.
it in.
Yes, sir. So I agree with all you other great men said. I feel like it's time for us to really seek God and get guidance. I believe we're faith-filled believers. We're faith-filled believers, next level thinkers, called out by God to do something. And a lot of times people act off of what they want to do instead of what God has for us to do in this season. And sometimes we can move too quickly. So I believe that it's time for us to seek God, man. As never before. Get back like old school folks used to pray and fast and do that sort of thing and build relationship. And the same thing, build relationship as Dr. Blue said, read and study us to show ourselves approved. And I believe building relationship, building community in this next season. So when we come out of this, we will have something to stand on that's ours. What does Black Wall Street look like today in our communities? How do we empower our people to go from leasing to owning and build that up? So, what would it look like us having our own black bank? Like, let's get to that aspect of it. So when we come out of this, we will have more leverage and things to stand on.
Yeah, I love that. I think everything you guys said was right on point. I think for me, and one is, doing church in a new way, meaning getting outside the walls, but actually also mastering the digital part of church, the e-church, the internet church. I don't know about you all, man, but I've learned so much in the last 3 months about doing a internet church and online church and cameras and lights and audio and all wonderful things that come along with it, but also recognizing that this is our season to get more spiritual, to dig in, and just what Eric just said, praying and fasting. It's overwhelming to be pastor, father, black man in America, an American, all at the same time when all this is coming down like a fire hose. It's mind blowing in a sense. It also can be overwhelming if you want to address all of them at the same time. But one thing I think we find comfort in is knowing the word of the Lord said, "Be still and know that I am God."
Yes.
And I keep reminding myself that after I do all these wonderful things and spend long hours of preparing and buying cameras and all these things, still remains true is God. And at the end of the day, it's our relationship with God. I'm finding the need more than ever to read books, as you mentioned, Mitchell. I need to start reading more books, studying the Word a little bit more, and praying more. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., I'm doing online prayer. I'm going to pray more now than I did before, openly, because I think it's our season for prayer as well and being reconnected with God. You know what the Word says. Everybody knows what the Word says. He says, seek His face, turn from your wicked ways, pray, and those things. And He'll heal our land. So, brothers, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank America for joining us as well. We'll do this again Tuesday and Sunday. We'll go to leadershiptalks.io. We'll continue to have these conversations with leaders around this country as we work to figure this out and create that bridge with our brothers. And I think white pastors, you know we love you. You know, we're brothers. We're all in this together. We may talk harsh, but it's out of love. And we're all in this together, serving the one God who brought us out of darkness and brought us into His wonderful light. So we thank you all for joining us. Brothers, thank you, each and every one of you. And Roosevelt in his absence, Robert, E. Will, and Mitchell. Thank you all. See you guys real soon.
Pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day,
Happy
gentlemen.
Father's Day.
Yeah,
Amen.
rocking.
Yes. Blessings to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Peace.